we're giving them until the end of the week. We got paycheck till the end of August, right? Some people get laid off early. Decent sign-ups.
All right.
Kelly's getting a drink of water.
Yeah, sorry. And I'm waiting on one more person. Carlos is going to join us. So are you guys enjoying Cannadelic so far?
Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. Like I mentioned earlier today, this is a great opportunity to absorb the information from our experts, people that have been in this space for a number of time, a lot of the vendors that are out there, and make some new connections for yourselves as well. Before we get started with the panel, I just want to talk a little bit about how this all came to start a little bit over 10 years ago. I came into this industry as a patient. I had a mass on my pancreas, and I found that I could use RSO as a treatment, Rick Simpson oil, for pancreatic cancer. I was going to Moffitt Cancer Center. I obtained RSO oil on what was the underground market here in Florida, which it came in 10-gram tubes. And getting ready to treat myself, and I was sitting in my kitchen, and the green team was down the street from my house. Come on, Carlos, join right up there. And I walked into the house, and I was sitting down at dinner with my wife, and I said, hey, the door's about to get kicked in, I think. And she's like, what for? And I'm like, well, I got that RSO oil in the closet. And she's like, Dad, nobody knows you have that in there. And I went through, she goes, well, go unlock the door then, if they're going to come here. So I'm sitting there paranoid at my kitchen table thinking that I'm going to have to deal with this arrest. Turns out there was some house in my neighborhood that was selling coke and ecstasy, and it was a big bust at their house, and it had nothing to do with me, but it brought into my perception of how many people are treating themselves for cancer and under the threat of being arrested or losing their freedom. I was in telecom for over 20 years. Now I'm dealing with some medical issue, and I'm afraid that I'm going to go to jail. And that's when I reached out to Mike Minardi, and I had found that he was helping patients back then with medical necessity defense, and that was the only thing that we really had in the state of Florida. And so I started saying there needs to be a change. So I got out of my old life. I was in telecom. I was a CEO for over 20 years. And I began this journey to help change the laws because I didn't think it was right that these parents that were treating children with everything from epilepsy, autism, even brain cancer, were under the same scrutiny that I felt that I was under at my kitchen table that night. And I knew that there had to be a change that was there, and that started our journey. And really, it was all about education with cannabis. My first step into the space, like I mentioned, was as a patient. It turned out it wasn't cancer, thank goodness. And my doctor said, Tom, you have a second lease on life. You could go do what you want. And that's when I jumped into this space of really trying to learn and educate myself and see the changes. And the last 10 years has been hell of a ride, a hell of a ride. We didn't pass the law in 2014. Some of these people that are sitting up here with me today, we've shared dinners, we've shared trips to Tallahassee, we've shared some of our most intimate moments in this industry together, really just trying to make change. And as you could see, fast forward 10 years from now, from then, change has occurred. And it's happened step by step. We do have a medical law. It wasn't passed in 2014. We had to dig in deep and get it passed in 2016, which delayed the state of Florida from a lot of things that have progressed in other states. We've had a lot of other states that have changed. We had a 2018 Farm Bill, which has opened up alternative products to the masses. So now we have a proliferation of products that are out there, and we have a lot of leaders that are in the space that are helping to guide these next steps. And my diagnosis quickly switched to PTSD. A a lot of it occurred through this industry. I stepped away from a lot of what I was doing in 2017 and was working with a lot of companies that were launching in this space, but my personal mental health was getting worse and worse. And that's what led me to start exploring some of the treatments that I was advising to some of the veterans that I was working with that cannabis wasn't enough for. Fast forward to today, and today we have a beautiful panel here, and I'd like each one of them to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about what has brought their journey to where we are. We embark on a very new opportunity to legalize adult use in the state of Florida through Amendment 3 that is coming up. There's a lot of misinformation that is being thrown around into the industry and thrown to the masses that confuse things. These are some of the same misinformation that we saw when we were trying to pass adult use in medical marijuana. There were attorneys that stepped up on the stage and said, we don't need medical marijuana, we have medical necessity defense. That hurt a lot of people that followed that advice. That was one of the things that prevented us from passing it in 2014. We had a lot of people saying we don't need medical marijuana because we already have CBD. All of these things as counter arguments to taking a step in the right direction towards abolishing prohibition. A prohibition that we've had in this country for way too long. We just heard Mike's talk about the effects of not just cannabis, but other drugs and psychoactives. We have a lot of good organizations that are out there that are helping with this. But here today, we have some of the people that have been leading that space, and I'd like to start with each one of them and tell us a little bit about what got you into the space and where you're at. And we're going to start with Carlos. Oh, you have a mic. And we'll start with Carlos over there.
Hello. How's everybody doing? Good. My name's Carlos Hermida. To go off of what Tom was talking about, you're going to hear some really inspirational stuff from these three people about why they got into the industry. But the truth is, I got into the industry because I was a pissed off teenager where my parents were telling me that you shouldn't smoke weed. And I really wanted to smoke weed. It was really helping me. Sooner or later, I found out about medical marijuana and how great medical marijuana is and how it's helped so many people. I slowly realized that I was actually one of those people it was helping, and moved out to California, got a job at a dispensary, worked in a dispensary where I was actually helping to treat patients with cannabis, and I saw firsthand that it wasn't just helping me, it was helping a lot of different people. When Amendment 2, United for Care's Amendment 2 initiative came out, I came back to Florida to work in the industry here and to put my stake into the whole activism side of things. I worked side by side with Tom. Tom actually gave me a job where I made my money from working from that gentleman for quite some time. I worked my way up to the vice president of Florida Cannabis Coalition. I'm also the co-founder of the local chapter for the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. It's called Suncoast Normal. I also founded a hemp dispensary in Ybor City, and now we have a location 2 blocks away in St. Petersburg as well, called Chillum Mushroom and Hemp Dispensary. And I've thrown my stake into the psychedelic side of things, and we're selling legal psychedelic mushrooms as well. And it's been an interesting journey. It's actually very, what Tom was saying about the people on the stage, some of these people have been in here twice as long as I have, and 3 times as long. I don't know how long Jodi has, but a long freaking time. But in the 10 years that I've really been involved in this space, in this activism movement, we've made a lot of great steps. There's so much more that we need to do, and I'm very proud to be a part of everything, and it's great that we have the opportunity to legalize come November. So.
Hello, everybody. Wait a minute. Can you hear me now?
that better? Okay. I'm Dr. Kelly King. How is everybody today? Thank you for coming out to the Cannadelic. I've been in this space for, gosh, I started in California, so I too am a California native. I grew up in the Bay Area in Oakland, California, kind of ground zero for everything. Cannabis, and I was going to medical school right around 1997 in California. Had the first medical, the very first medical cannabis program in the entire country, which was passed in 1996. So I kind of grew up in my medical career knowing about cannabis. However, I left California and went to the University of Tennessee. So that's where I went. And at the University of Tennessee, it was very, very different than California. So when I graduated medical school, I went back to California, did my residency in internal medicine, and then joined the Air Force. And the Air Force sent me to Florida. I was stationed at MacDill Air Force Base for about four years, which took me right up to the point, and then I left, went to North Carolina, came back, and they passed the amendment to end medical cannabis. And so I thought, this is really what I want to get into. I really want to have a clinic that educates patients, that are advocates for patients, because I had now seen the trajectory starting in California of where these medical cannabis programs can go. And for good, bad, ugly, I found myself here in Florida and wanted to be a part of this space. I've now, since 2016, I've now treated over 3,000 or 4,000 patients in a solo practice there in Brandon. And so it's been an amazing ride. Tom has a place not too far from me, Chill Cawfee, and Tom and I and Pete and Jodi and Mike, we've been in this, and we know this space, and I'm just proud and happy to be a part of it. I now do some psychedelics, and we're doing some consultations for psychedelics in our clinic, and we are introducing that to our patients. So I'm very happy to be a part of this. Thank you.
My name is Jodi James, and currently I serve as the president of a 25-year-old advocacy organization here in Florida, the Florida Cannabis Action Network. Maybe 2003, I was being introduced by someone, and they said, "This is Jodi James. She's been in the cannabis industry for years." Now, if you guys have done the math, I said I plead the fifth. Because, of course, in 2003, there wasn't a lot of cannabis industry. In 1996, Dr. Kelly was talking about Prop 215 in California. Floridians here in St. Pete, Floridians in Tampa, Floridians in Key West, Floridians in Tallahassee, and Floridians in Melbourne, Florida, where I live, were all raising money to send to California to pass Proposition 215, because we understood that it was a pivotal moment in time. We understood that where Florida could go was where California was at that very moment. My children are 30 and 26. Yes, I am probably old enough to be Mike's mom. And they have never known anything other than the advocacy work the Cannabis Action Network has done. We have been in the streets doing direct action. In 2000, we won the Critical Resistance Award for our Journey for Justice, where we took prisoners from Stark Penitentiary to the Tallahassee to draw attention to the needs of patients. That was in 2000. When we got to Tallahassee, we made a joke about how we should just go on to Texas because we were halfway there. And later that year, we did. We marched on G.W. Bush, who was then slated to be president, and we marched down the avenue in Austin, Texas. The Dallas newspaper called us outside experts on Texas war on drugs. And we did it because we were incarcerating 2 million people in the federal system for nonviolent drug offenses. We did it because millions of people were suffering from I cannot do that. Thank you, say it out loud.
Neurodegenerative.
Good, because I was going to stumble over it again. Suffering from that. I am going to be at a memorial tomorrow for a woman I've worked with for 27 years who was diagnosed in 1986 with Lou Gehrig's disease, told she would live 3 to 5 years, and because of access to cannabis, she passed away at age 74 in her home. She was in her 30s when she was diagnosed. That's pretty sexy. So I'm very proud to have witnessed the evolution of this. I am a proud psychedelic user. Mike said to be loud and proud about it. The effects of entheogens, which is this class, starting with cannabis and psilocybin, LSD, the class of entheogens that I have had access to have been pivotal in my growth. It's been pivotal in my ability to sustain. It's been pivotal in my ability to look at people who are supposed to be my allies and know that as soon as I turned my back, the knife was going in it. I talked to a guy who had the second dispensary in Colorado, and he said there were daggers coming to me from the front, and there were daggers coming to me from behind. And that's what happens when you lead. And that's what happens when you lead in this. Thank God for psychedelics, because back when I'd say, look, we'll just figure out where the line is, and we'll take the band, and we'll get us some hippie chicks, and we'll go to the line, and we'll dance. And you know what happens when you go to the line and you dance and you make it look like a party? They move back the line. So I hope you are all enjoying the new line that we have built for you, where we can dance, but the work is not done. My friend Kathy Jordan went last month. We were on a meeting together. This is the woman who just passed. We were in a meeting together. We worked by Zoom. She had long since stopped traveling, but was still able to be very articulate. We worked together on July 2nd in a meeting, and by July 4th, she had passed. She didn't see July 4th's 420, but it was an auspicious day for her to pass. In that meeting on July 2nd, the thing that we were discussing is how she and her son had gone to the supervisor of elections to ensure that when she voted yes on Amendment 3 in November, that her X was going to be counted. Because making sure that people are registered to vote, making sure that people understand who they are voting for, making sure people understand the consequences have been very, very important to us. In the next couple days, you'll be able to, most of you got a postcard. In the next couple days, you'll be able to get the results of the surveys that we've been doing for the last 2 weeks on the people that you're going to have to vote for. Some of them are going to be pro-cannabis. Some of them aren't. Some of them are going to move the battle line forward, and some of those are going to take us the other direction. And no matter what you think about Amendment 3, which is why we're here, it is going to move the ball further down the line. And I will tell you, in 25 years, not every action I've ever taken moved the ball. Some of it was just fun. Some of it was just pranks. Some of it was desperation. Some of it we were just high when we came up with that one. But voting yes on November 5th, voting yes by absentee ballot, making sure that your vote counts, taking our 420 challenge, make 4 posts about Amendment 3, take 2 people with you to the polls, and make sure nobody, 0 people are left behind. Because we can do this, we will move the ball forward, or we will send a message to the world that legalization stops here.
Excellent. So my name is Michael Minardi. I'm an attorney. I did become an attorney to help legalize cannabis and psychedelics and drugs. So when I came to law school, I'm from New Hampshire originally. I think best motto in the country, live free or die. So I live that motto each and every day I can. So when I came down, I went to law school at Nova and Davie. First person I looked up and started working for was a man that we lost earlier this year, or late last year, Norm Kent. He was on the board member of NORML. He was an attorney, part of the NORML Legal Committee, which is, again, the national organization for the reform of marijuana law. Has been around since the 70s. And I started working for him, because who would be better to work for him, the first person in Florida that established the necessity defense, right? So I worked for him. Through that, I met, Tony? Latina.
I remember you sitting in front of my desk. You were still very young.
Right when I was in law school, I looked for the advocates who in this state was not only, supporting cannabis legalization, but trying to do something. And so Jodi was one of my first contacts in the space, and Karen Goldstein of NORML of Florida. I've been blessed. I've been on the board of Florida Can. I'm a legal director of NORML of Florida. I'm on the national organization legal committee for marijuana laws. I'm in the distinguished counsel circle. And I've really dedicated my life and my passion to this. Probably too much, but who cares? We only live once. But so, I believe in this fundamental freedom, right? At least in this body, because you're right, we are eternal. We've done enough psychedelics, right? But so, this is a passion of mine. A patient, a plant that's used for health and healing. I'm personally of the opinion, you can use it recreationally all you want, but it's still going to help you medicinally. You may not know it, you may not want it, but it's the truth. You can't use cannabis without reducing your inflammation. So these things are, and going back to my last slide, right, euphoria. Pursuit of happiness we're supposed to and we're allowed to have. When you look up happiness, or you look up euphoria, right, which is the main side effect of cannabis, it says happiness. So how is this not a constitutional right, right? And how is this not an inalienable right given to us by our Creator? So love the plant, love the people that it brings together, love the thing that it does for people. Most of why I've continued to go, I've thought about moving to California, to other states numerous times, but it's because there's still too many people that are hurting, that are suffering, that are arrested for this plant, and I can't abandon you. So thank you so much. Love what you do. Thank you for coming here, and hopefully pushing Amendment 3 passed in November.
So, as you can see, we have a number of people here right now that have been in this fight for quite some time, which has led us up to the point that we are at right now, where we get to vote on adult legal use in the state of Florida come November. Before we do that, Jodi, can you go over some of the milestones that we've had over maybe the last 6 or 7 years that has gotten us to the point where we are today?
Thank you. That's a fabulous opportunity. And I was just kind of thinking about that. I'm going to go back 10, if I might. In 2014 is when the monopoly started. I don't know if any of you would recall this, but it was 2014 where we introduced a low THC bill. And I say we, and I really don't mean it. The bill that I wrote would have made the hemp industry legal, and it would have given you up to 1 point THC. But that's neither here nor there. The bill that they took and created from that ended up being a low THC, high CBD bill that would have allowed 5 companies, one from each of 5 regions, to cultivate low THC cannabis for the more than 100,000 children in the state of Florida that were suffering from chronic seizure disorder. This is about the time that you were seeing, was it Geraldo that was doing the Sanjay Gupta, thank you, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, that was looking at things like Charlotte Figge and what was happening with CBD. And I have to ask each and every one of you, if you had sat there with me that day when the House sent it back over with 5 limited licenses, knowing that 100,000 children with seizure disorders' lives would change if we voted yes, would you have told the Senate to vote no? Because really that was the decision we had to make. That was what started this mess. We had to decide in that moment, with no time to spare, if we said no, 100,000 children would not have access to medicine that we knew was going to reduce their seizures. Would you have said no? I couldn't. As much as I wanted cannabis for myself, as much as I understood the need for medical marijuana for all those people with those diseases that I can't even say, I couldn't say no, even knowing that it was going to give 5 companies, because I believed that the benefit of those children not having dozens of seizures every day was enough. Milestones. In 2014, we passed low THC. In 2015, we came back and we passed the right to try. This is through the Florida legislature, and the right to try said if you had a terminal illness, that you could go beyond things that were that were FDA approved, and you could go beyond things that were available for trials. So even if a medicine, cannabis, wasn't in a clinical trial, you would still be able to use it under the color of law. You'll recall that in 2014, while we were passing the low THC bill, there was also what became Amendment 2. Amendment 2 failed with 57% in 2014, and thank goodness the folks who then were funding the amendment, folks who really wanted to be in the business, they were the ones funding Amendment 2. Don't kid yourselves. Amendment 2 was funded by people who wanted a stake in the developing industry. When it failed at 57%, thank goodness we had people who were willing to spend a few $1 million to get it on the ballot. Milestones that you might not think about, things that have changed since then, is how hard it is to get something on the ballot. When I first started doing ballot work a long, long, long time ago, your signatures counted forever. By the time I introduced an amendment in 2015, your signatures were only good for 2 years. Today, signatures are good for less than 2 years. Every signature you need has to be collected in less than 18 months, which is why the price tag for these types of amendments continue to go up and up and up. In 2016, Amendment 2 passed. We spent the next 2 years in the regulatory process developing rules and regulations. By 2018, the U.S. Farm Bill had passed, and we were fortunate to have someone in the Department of Agriculture at the time that was going to allow an industry to be created. So I think that kind of is where we are now. We have created a thriving hemp industry. Carlos doesn't like it when I call it over the counter. He doesn't, but I can go and over the counter, I just buy it off the shelf. We have a thriving, but it's not hemp, I wear hemp. So, we have a thriving hemp industry. We have millions of people who are getting access to safe legal products. And I think that's an amazing, beautiful thing. And it is my hope that once we pass Amendment 3, that rather than being silent, that the people will rise up and demand that we still have access through our corner stores, that we still have access to these plants through the purveyors, that more people will be able to get involved in the industry. A vertically integrated industry, which is what we have right now, the person who in the MMTC, they have to cultivate it, they have to do any sorts of extractions and packaging, they have to run the retail. That's not good for patients. When we go back to Tallahassee in 2025, regardless of what happens at the ballot box, we're going to be talking about things like the right to garden. You will find that our organization talks about cultivation as accessibility and affordability. So those are conversations we get to keep having Honest to goodness, I missed a meeting. I was the executive director of Florida Cannabis Action Network in 2013 when the Florida Cannabis Action Network board voted to support medical marijuana, and I was adamantly opposed. I didn't like the cards. I didn't like the limited conditions. There were a dozen things that someone with my level of experience understood were going to be problems as we rolled this out. But my board said yes, the people wanted it, and I got on board because it took us a step further. And I would encourage all of you to help us take the next step.
That was a great. Thank you, Jodi. That was a great lead up to where we are today. And my next question is for both Dr. Kelly King and Carlos. We'll start with Dr. Kelly. Since Amendment 2 passing, you know, we talk a lot about homeostasis in the body and homeostasis in communities. What have you been able to see with patients that you've been able to treat that has brought back, you know, some of the positive benefits that we have now post Amendment 2 passing that we didn't have before?
Oh, my goodness.
She's a real doctor.
A day does not go by. I tell people my clinic is my happy place. Like I work in hospitals and I work in different places. Oh, this is not working. Okay. And I work in different places. I work in hospitals. But when I see patients in my clinic, there is not a patient that does not tell me this has been life-changing. This has been, you know, I get patients from Tampa Pain Clinic, a lot of them. Because when we first started this about a year after Amendment 2 passed, that's when the legislation came through where doctors couldn't write as many narcotics, as many opioid prescriptions, and they started to limit that. And so patients were getting cut off from their opioids. And so I went to the biggest pain relief center and I said, hey, I don't care how you feel about cannabis. Your patients are going to be coming to you and they're going to be asking about it. And you can feel good about sending them to me because I'm going to get them off of all these narcotics. So I've gotten many patients off of a lot of the narcotics, and their pain is very well controlled. I've seen many patients that come in with multiple sclerosis, that come in with Crohn's disease. We talk about inflammation, we talk about CBD, we talk about ratios, we talk about the different dispensaries that have which products that they need, and that's one of the things we're hopeful with Amendment 3 that our medical patients will still be able to have access to a lot of the products that my internal medicine patients have to see. I basically now have an internal medicine practice for cannabis. So I go through all of their internal medicine. I don't know if any of you are on the blood pressure medicines or on the glaucoma medicines or on the diabetes medicines. I go through all of those and we talk about what medicines we can take off, what medicines we need to leave on. You know, many patients don't sleep. I mean, and it could be something you think is as simple as I don't sleep and I have migraine headaches. But oh my God, if you look at all of the pills that they're on, that's one reason. And if you look at their hormones, when Tom asks about homeostasis, I now do bioidentical hormones because I find that if you can regulate a person's endocannabinoid system and their hormonal balance system, you have given them a new lease on life. I mean, it's amazing. Now they're sleeping. Now they're feeling better. They're not depressed, and they're off of a lot of these prescription pills. Now, and internal medicine, that's the biggest thing we learn in medical school is how to write pills. So I know how to write pills. Pills. And pills, too many pills will absolutely kill you. Too many pills have too many side effects. There's too many drug-drug interactions. And I have found in my medical cannabis patients, when I'm able to get patients off of the pill burden, get them onto a very natural and holistic regimen of cannabis, it's amazing. And it makes me feel good about being a doctor, and it makes me feel good about going to work and treating patients. So those are the things I have found. So, thank you.
So Carlos, you and myself, we're on the front lines in retail stores. And since Amendment 2 and since the passing of the Farm Bill, this has given us the opportunity to basically reach out to a lot of consumers or people out there that may not be ready to get their medical card, but they're looking at or they're interested in this. Tell me a little bit about what you've seen in the progression of some of the people that you interact with in the space seeking plant medicine.
Probably the most striking customers that I've had is from the veterans community. When we first opened, we opened our space to an organization that's actually disbanded since then, but it was called Weed for Warriors Project. And since then, we've made it a point. We've seen what this can really do. It, not to sound too corny, but cannabis, psychedelics, all of this stuff, what it can do for the mind, it to me is probably the most impressive thing that it does. There are people out there. I mean, I believe the statistic is still the same. There's 22 veterans a day committing suicide. There's a number of veterans out there committing suicide every day, and what this plant does, being able to slow it down, being able to kind of let people just assess. The reason why I consume cannabis is because I have pretty severe ADHD. I've worked for Tom, and Tom can probably tell you that it's really hard for me to focus on more than one thing at a time. But when I'm focused on that one thing, it's amazing. I can move mountains if I just control this situation. And that's really what cannabis does for, a number of neurodivergent people, for the people in the veterans community. I've had a number of customers that still come to my place to this day that I really feel wouldn't be around anymore if it wasn't for the access to this plant. And it's been really helpful for a lot of different people.
Thank you, Carlos. Carlos is a little modest. He's really an amazing guy when he gets focused. But we're reaching out. We're touching a lot of lives through what we're doing, and that leads me up to my next question, which is for Mike. Can you explain what Amendment 3 will do? Because even with the progress that we've had, there are people still being arrested. There are people that still are not willing to put their name on the registry. And there's still people turning to the black market, getting fentanyl-laced products and, putting themselves in dangerous positions. So Amendment 3 has a lot of positive impacts, and can you touch on a few of those for us today?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as Jodi kind of explained the market, right? We started with that low THC, and I want people to, we've taken baby steps the way that this industry has progressed in the state. And really only any positive steps forward have been done through ballot initiatives, not through our legislature. And when we're talking about, and when she told you that, just as a history real quick, in 2014, they passed that low THC bill in part because they knew medical was going to be on the ballot, and they wanted to be able to say, we already have medical, we don't do this. Same thing in 2016 when they passed the Right to Try Act. It was to give them an excuse as to why we don't need this amendment. So, and I don't know if they're going to try that with this ploy that they're working on, working with the hemp space to say, well, we already have hemp products, so we don't need legalization. I tell you, we do. We currently still, and it happened in this county, right? We're in Pinellas. I had a client arrested with their vape pen. They're a patient, had a card with their vape pen because the cartridge wasn't in the packaging. Okay? How many people use their vape pen, put the cartridge on their vape pen, then take it off and put it back in the packaging? Does anyone do that? It's absolutely insane. And the cop on the video is like I had a gold mine. We got him. So that's a problem for me. You know, we have problems right now with patients, and these are things that currently exist, which may or may not exist in the future, right? The biggest thing for me, the biggest benefit I think of legalization in Amendment 3, regardless of what you care about the businesses, regardless of where you get your weed, is whether or not it negates probable cause for them to search your vehicle, right? Because currently, and most people don't know, and I wish it was different, when hemp passed, most of the prosecutors throughout this state came out and said, okay, well, it's an odor plus standard. We have to have the odor plus something else in order to search, in order to arrest. Well, the Florida courts have said, nah, I don't care if you have a medical card. I don't care if you say it's hemp. We still have a right to search. The odor is still a right to search. So that is the fundamental problem with everything, right? So regardless of under Amendment 3, if it passes, if you have it in your container from the dispensary or not, negating probable cause to search would make that fact irrelevant, right? So now, when you get pulled over and they smell the odor, it doesn't matter if it's medical or not, doesn't matter if it's in the packaging or not, they're still gonna ask to see it, right? So that's problem number one, that this will solve, absolutely solve. And really, I think that should be the most important thing to everybody, no matter what. Number two, obviously we're gonna have less people getting arrested. I do foresee, and this is something we're challenging in the courts, but you know, so currently you do have to have it in the packaging. So if you're a patient and you have a bag of weed on your seat or in your car, you're still going to get arrested, regardless of whether or not you got it from the dispensary. That's irrelevant at the front point. The cop's going to arrest you. We had a client who allegedly rolled up joints to go to a concert and got arrested with the joints. He had his medical card, he had proof, he actually had the container, the joints weren't in it, but where he bought the weed, and the cop didn't care. Well, they're not in the container anymore. So these are all things that I hope will avoid with Amendment 3 passing. And to me, that's a win for us. If they can't search your car, if they can't search your house because of the odor of cannabis anymore, you win. You win. We all win. So that's the big thing. What Amendment 3 will do, it'll allow you to possess up to 3 ounces of flower, 5 grams of concentrate. I'm not really sure how that's going to play out. For example, currently, if you are arrested for, say, with a chocolate bar, right, and it's not from a dispensary, that total weight of that chocolate bar is how they charge you. So if I'm buying a chocolate bar, one chocolate bar from a dispensary, which may have 100 milligrams of THC in it, does that count to my 5 grams I'm allowed to have in the total weight, or just the 100 milligrams? I don't know. Will cops know? I doubt it. So, you know, that's a worry that I think we're going to have. I'm hoping that it'll impact employee rights, and because it's legal, it'll help push employers to allow a positive test for cannabis now. That's something we're constantly fighting for patients. But again, I think Amendment 3, the no probable cause to search, is number one. Stop getting people arrested, get people out of jails. I personally don't think it goes far enough, but that's a single subject issue, right? Don't blame the writers, blame the courts. And Jodi and I know it. Jodi was there. We had 2 adult use amendments that were before the Florida Supreme Court in 2018 that both were denied by the Florida Supreme Court for various reasons. And so, and not to defend them, I was one of the first ones at Florida green carpet events coming out banning True Leave, banning the dispensaries, but they did it for an incremental approach so that we could pass it and it would pass Supreme Court review. And I am happy to say, again, not promoting them, I don't shop there necessarily. Kim Rivers did say step 1 is this, and hopefully step 2 is home cultivation, because we support home cultivation. And we need it more than anything. And maybe if odor to search isn't probable cause to search your house, and you get a hemp license to cultivate hemp at your house, who knows?
Excellent, excellent. You know, we have a lot of changes that are coming our way, and you know, there's a lot of talk about big business and monopolies, And but as Jodi mentioned earlier, the big business and the business opportunities are really what started changing the minds of our legislatures. Going up to Tallahassee in a shirt and a tie, starting to have those conversations, having groups that were donating to their local legislators, getting in there and actually having them hear them is what really has moved that line. And we know that Amendment 3 passing is going to provide opportunities for large monopolies, so to speak, to expand their product offerings. So some of the things that I see is that we're going to have a medical program still, just like we do in Colorado. We'll have locations that have multiple type of products, maybe even lifestyle type products that can be incorporated into your lifestyle. And we're also going to be able to see opportunities for other individuals that want to get into the space for everything for branding and creativity and educational outreach, retreats, and all of these things. What are some of the opportunities that you may see coming out of Amendment 3 that will make it possible for small mom and pops and individuals that want to get involved in this space? And what advice could you give to people that are looking for that?
Probably the most exciting thing for me is tourism. There's going to be a lot of people coming to the state that wanted to participate in our medical marijuana program. Maybe they have a medical license from out of state that just could not do it and were turned away at the dispensary. If Amendment 3 passes, it's going to open up a whole new line for tourists to come in. And one of the biggest problems with cannabis tourism is it's hard to find a place to consume your cannabis. You're not allowed public consumption. There's going to be, you're not going to be allowed to do it in the hotel. Some people might put like a towel under the door or something like that, but you're not allowed to do that. There's like wafting the smoke detector or whatever. I've been there. So I'm really excited to see that possibly consumption lounges opening in places like South Beach or in Orlando, where it's not a place where you necessarily go to consume your product, but maybe they sell food, maybe they sell drinks, maybe it's just a place where
Coffee.
or coffee, or maybe it's just a place where they lay out board games or allow you to watch a movie or something like that. Just give you a safe place to consume and be around other people who consume with you. It's so easy with alcohol to find a place where you can just grab a beer, or and tourism in South Beach is all about that. I'm really excited to see, hopefully we'll see people saying Florida sober or something like that at some point. I'm also really excited, for ancillary products. One thing that I'm very proud of for what we do is, we don't just sell hemp, we don't just sell mushroom, we sell products to help you consume. We sell nice glass pieces. We sell, vaporizers and whatnot. There is a big underground community of people who enjoy nice, expensive glass pieces to consume their products out of. At our store, believe it or not, I have a pipe on sale for $5,000. And it is a Charmander pipe. And it is beautiful. It is made very, very well, and it's a work of art. And I'm excited to see glass blowers and artists coming out and showing their abilities in that regard.
So, yeah, I'm with Carlos on the lounge thing. And personally, I would push for anyone to start them now. We have the center in St. Pete, what we started up, which they have a lounge section. Chill Coffee allows patients to consume. Florida Can Office, Minardi Law Office, Canna Retreat, Deep in Nature Retreat. We encourage
High Noon Wednesdays.
High Noon Wednesday Club, networking club. But the social lounges, absolutely. We were in Vegas in April, and we went to the Planet 13 Social Lounge, And I got to say, if you're a cannabis consumer and not a drinker, it's just like heaven. It's like you sit there, you have a bartender come, you get to order your stuff, you order joints, they can roll it for you, you can roll it yourself, they give you a vaporizer, they give you a Puffco, and
Just
you
like
sit
the Florida
there-
Can Office.
Right, just like, exactly. You have to pay at the Florida Can Office. No, at Planet 13. But, you know, it was real sense of freedom, right? You're not around necessarily drunk people getting drunk, and it just was a sense of freedom that we don't have, and that in only every state that you go to, you can't find. And that's, you know, our complaint of our legislature, right? DeSantis, oh, the whole state's going to smell like weed. Well, give us a place to smoke it.
You know, I too, about consumption lounges, you know, I quit drinking alcohol over 10 years ago, 14 years ago. And when I got into the cannabis space, I wasn't a big smoker either. But that was one of the reasons that we opened up Chill Coffee. You know, 7 billion people use the psychoactive caffeine, so we're able to connect with people. But I also was working with veterans out west in Arizona that were getting their medical card, and the cannabis wasn't working for them. They were going home and they were using it in their same set and setting, maybe around a spouse that wasn't as optimistic about how cannabis could help them. So setting up places where it's safe to come and meet other like-minded people is truly important. And that's what our collective consciousness is able to allow. Whether you're a medical patient or you're somebody wanting to try these products in the right set and setting. And Amendment 3 is going to open up access to more people. You know, we have 700,000 patients right now in our state. You know, we have a lot of people that are interested in this, and you know, we see this moving towards another step in the right direction. It doesn't have everything, like many people would like to point out, but what it does have is it has an opportunity for freedom, and freedom for all of us. So before we wrap up this this panel, do we have any questions from our audience out here? We're running a little bit behind, but that's okay. We're on cannabis time.
Does that mean it's 4:20?
Thank you all. It's been very informing. This is just a silly question. What will the challenges be for medical providers to transition into becoming a recreational provider as well, if and when Amendment 3 passes?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think there will always be a need for medical education within the space of cannabis. There should always be a need. I cringe to think of my 75-year-old patients just waltzing into a dispensary without having some sort of foundation before they go in there. I don't think there will need to be a recreational provider, but I think as we transition as medical providers, creating a space for recreational users that they can still come and get education and still maybe come and get a consultation without necessarily needing to have a medical card. The other thing I'd like to see with the Amendment 2 and with the revenue that they can get from Amendment 3 is possibly paying for cards for veterans, paying for cards for people on Medicare, paying for cards for people on Medicaid. This has been it's a very expensive endeavor for patients who are on fixed incomes or who are veterans to go to the dispensaries and to also get their medical card. So some of that revenue could go to do that. There are also there are also people who are still incarcerated who are, you know, minorities that are still incarcerated, and I think that there are programs that some of that revenue can go towards to get them out and pay for legal fees. So.
I think something to point out as far as medical cannabis in Florida is concerned, is two things having to do with two parts to our Constitution. There is a part in the Florida Constitution that says that we won't tax medicine, and there is another part that says marijuana is medicine. So the state misses out on a lot of taxes because of the medical program. You know, there's, and you know, there's these hefty fees for the, you know, for licensing and all that, and that's how they made their money. But it's important to point out the state is going to start making their tax revenue, but however, there's still going to be a strong demand for medical, because the medical program's not going to have taxes, and there's going to be huge taxes on recreational cannabis in the state.
That's a really good point, Carlos. And you know, also throughout our journey through plant medicine, when we're using it for healing, whether it's for trauma, there are different stages that we go through. We go through awareness, we go through shadow work, and then we move into light work on how these products can enhance our lives. You know, so we start learning to use them as tools throughout that process. So the recreational user is much different than somebody that's using it for trauma, somebody that is using it to get past certain medical things, to bring their mind to a point of peace and relief. And then once we get past through that space, there's the opportunities to use these products as an adult for fun, for enjoyment, for that next stage. And I think that that's one of the things that we can look at, is that everybody is at a different stage in their path. You know, patients that need the guidance, that are dealing with things like cancer, dealing with things like epilepsy, Parkinson's. You know, I always heard the term, they came for the THC and stayed for the CBD. You know, because the cannabinoids and the terpenes and all these things that we've been learning about for the last 10 years, they not only help us to heal, but they enhance our everyday lives. So with that being said,
just real quick, you know, for the medical, when it goes to rec, I hope that it changes the paradigm we have right now. Currently, I really hate our system that we have like pot docs, right? And especially for medical patients, right? So I hope that we will separate that. And like, I'm blessed, I have Kelly King's my doctor, right? I highly recommend it. But she will sit down with people and sit down with you that have ailments and actually treat you and tell you what you're using what for and stuff like that, which a lot of the pot docs don't do. And I'm not blaming them, we need them, they're totally great. But I think, and I'm hoping that the fundamental aspect of cannabis healing will be further realized by this separation, because the doctors like Kelly will be more in it for the patient than it for the money. So that's you know, makes me feel good to think of that.
And I think so long as we remember there is a subset of patients out there that will never use something as long as it is illegal. And there are people with complex medical conditions that desperately need to be adding this medicine to their therapeutic routine, and they need to be doing that under the care of a physician. Again, one of the things that our organization is going to be talking about is affordability and access. That's home cultivation. I think that is something that should automatically be granted to someone who is a qualified patient. The other thing that we're going to continue to work on is making sure that there are things like patients first in line, and that we can write things into the after the rules. We write rules. After we pass this, we write rules. And I'm going to fight high taxes. But I'm also
Me too.
I'm also going to fight to make sure that patients continue to have first in line, have quality access.
And I know we're wrapping up, but I just want to make one quick point, and I want to bring things back to Amendment 3. You're going to hear back and forth on Amendment 3, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether you should vote yes, whether you should vote no. I want to make the point that Amendment 3, whatever it is going to be a step in the right direction. It's absolutely important that you vote yes on 3, but it's more important about who you vote for, because who you vote for will implement Amendment 3. And all these things that people say that, you know, there's no home grow, there's no business, there's, you know, all these things can be changed with our legislator. And don't look at what people's platforms are. Politics is very hard to understand, and trust me, Florida politics is way harder. Who you vote for is very important. Don't just look at their platforms. Look to see on how they voted on this issue in this past, because that's very important. It's not about Democrat. It's not about Republican. I am a Democrat. I'll say that out loud. It's not about Democrat. Every Democrat in the Senate voted to end the hemp industry in Florida. So they say one thing and they do another. So look at what they're doing, not what they're telling you. Thank you.
I invite all of you guys to follow Suncoast Normal, Florida Can. I know that every year they put out a voting guide to help people to disseminate through it. Catalyst things like this, abortion, they bring voters out to the polls. And then a lot of times they believe that that will just vote blue or red, one way or the other. That's not what it's about anymore. So being educated, learning about it. If you're not registered to vote, please do register to vote. Remember Amendment 3 is coming up. I invite you to take the 420 challenge with Florida Can and help to share this information with your friends, neighbors, because this is a step in the right direction. And then once we get this passed, there's lots of things that we could do through legislation. I would love to see free medical cards for our veterans. We should not have to pay to be able to access medicine. We should see free programs to help them with integrating and moving forward through this journey so they can improve their lives through plant medicine. We should see these things and we can help to make that. We should allow for home grow and allow people to garden and learn how to treat themselves. This is a holistic movement. It's not just one subject. But unfortunately, we only have one subject that we can present to the state at a time. And right now, it's to legalize adult use in the state of Florida. We may never have this chance again. So if you do anything, get out there and let's vote yes on 3 and help people to understand how this is so important. I want to thank you guys very much today, not just for today, but for all the work that you do every day in helping Florida become a more evolved state for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, so next up we have Bionic Bloom. Angela? Good job. I gotta get with you. Yeah. It's just been crazy. I know. Yeah. Jordan's here. He's in the back right over there. Yeah, if you want to say hi to him. Yeah. He came to help me with my booth. All right, so our next speaker is one of